Two rookie cops. A dangerous kidnapping and no backup. Midnight Runners is an electrifying ride where courage meets comedy, as these unlikely heroes battle a ruthless crime syndicate. Can they survive the odds and bring justice? A new class of police students attends the ceremony. Once it concludes, they are told to move to the Union Hall for a required haircut, as part of the police military training. Park Ki-joon's mother advises him to follow his superiors, not skip meals, stay strong, and reassures him that he can always return home if the training becomes too difficult. Ki-joon reassures her that he will be fine and urges her to stay healthy. They share a hug and say their goodbyes. Hyeol's father observes the scene and jokingly asks if they, too, should embrace. Hyeol simply nods, indicating a polite refusal. Students line up to salute their parents before marching out of the hall. When it's Ki-joon's turn for his haircut, he asks the barber not to cut it too short, explaining that his sideburns take a long time to grow. As the haircut continues, Hyeol whispers something to Ki-joon, clearly showing his dislike for him. It's Hyeol's turn for a haircut. As the clipper nears his head, he pulls back and asks the barber if it has been sanitized, explaining that improper sanitation is one of his fears since it can lead to bacterial skin infections. Despite his concerns, the barber proceeds, leaving Hyeol with no choice but to accept the haircut. Afterward, a brief meeting is held to inform the recruits that they will undergo a condensed 2-week military training program. Following the meeting, the students carry their belongings to their assigned rooms. One of the recruits, Jae-ho, shares a story about his father, who had been part of a police academy class in his youth. Jae-ho mentions that his father taught him about public order and justice, adding that they would also learn such things during training. After his story, he asks Ki-joon why he joined the program. Ki-joon hesitates, unable to articulate a clear reason. Jae-ho teases him, asking if he's just there to fool around. Suddenly, an alarm buzzes, signaling them to report to the center field in full battle uniform within 3 minutes. They are warned that anyone late will face punishment. Chaos ensues as the recruits rush to the field. Training begins under the blazing sun. The commander notices their lack of coordination and orders them to repeat the exercises, counting from 1 to 100. As the drills continue, it becomes evident that Ki-joon is struggling, his exhaustion showing. However, he pushes through and manages to complete the exercises. At the canteen, Ki-joon sits across from Hyeol and notices that Hyeol hasn't touched his sausages. He asks if Hyeol plans to eat them, to which Hyeol replies that he doesn't eat sausages, citing unhealthy ingredients. Without hesitation, Ki-joon spears the sausages off Hyeol's plate and starts eating them before Hyeol can warn him about their potential health risks. Annoyed, Hyeol leaves the table while Ki-joon enjoys his meal. After breakfast, the recruits' body measurements are taken to ensure proper uniform fitting. While Ki-joon waits in line, he whispers to Hyeol, who is being measured, in a way that seems mocking. The recruits are then informed about their final challenge, the Mount Bupwa race. To officially gain acceptance into the university, they must run up and back down the mountain within 1 hour. Failing to meet the time limit means they won't pass. The commander urges them to give it their all. As the race begins and the recruits run with determination, Hyeol trips while running and injures his ankle. He calls out for help from a classmate, but he is ignored. A short while later, Ki-joon passes by and notices Hyeol sitting on the ground. He asks what Hyeol is doing. Hyeol explains that he sprained his ankle and can't walk. Ki-joon initially apologizes and plans to leave, but as he turns to go, Hyeol reminds him about the sausages he gave up earlier. Ki-joon dismisses this, saying he only ate them because Hyeol didn't want them and wouldn't have touched them otherwise. In a final effort to persuade him, Hyeol promises to reward Ki-joon with steak, explaining that his father is a big name in the meat market. He even sweetens the deal, mentioning it would be Korean beef with perfect marbling. Tempted by the offer, Ki-joon reluctantly agrees and tells Hyeol to climb onto his back. Though Hyeol is heavy and they initially fall, Ki-joon manages to carry him to the pavement. However, by the time they return, the rest of the class has been waiting, and the 1-hour mark has already passed. Out of breath, Ki-joon listens as the officer asks why they are late. Hyeol explains that he sprained his ankle while running and that Ki-joon helped him back to the site. Hyeol then vouches for Ki-joon's physical competence and asks the officer to accept him into the university. The officer turns to the other students and asks if anyone saw the two helping each other. Every hand is raised. When she asks if anyone didn't see it, no hands go up. The officer, visibly disappointed, scolds the recruits, telling them it is their duty as future police officers to assist those in need. She declares that they failed not because they didn't finish on time, but because they neglected a classmate who needed help. As punishment, they are ordered to climb Mount Bupwa again. Meanwhile, Ki-joon and Hyeol are sent to the infirmary. Ki-joon, still unsure, asks the officer if they passed. The officer, while dismissive, makes it clear that they did. Overjoyed, The two celebrate as the officer walks away. Later, the oath-taking ceremony is held. The successful recruits pledge to uphold their duties and dedicate themselves to their studies. They are now officially university students, ready to embark on the next chapter of their journey. 2 years later, the recruits are jolted awake by a sounding horn. While getting dressed, Hee-yul complains to Ki-jun about the uniform, expressing his dislike for the color green, especially the shade of the one he's wearing. Their day begins with an exam, followed by a lecture from Professor Young. The topic is the alarming rise in abduction cases targeting adult women and children under the age of 13. During the lecture, Professor Yang poses a question. Jae-ho attempts to answer but gets it wrong. Hee-yul supplies the correct answer, but the embarrassment of Jae-ho's failure prompts him to glare at the pair. In response, Hee-yul and Ki-jun mock him by subtly flipping him off, much to their own amusement. In the locker room beforehand, Ki-jun casually asks Hee-yul about his plans for Christmas. Hee-yul replies that he plans to go to an internet cafe with Ki-jun. Their classmate Jae-ho overhears the conversation and joins in, teasing them while flaunting a photo of his new girlfriend. Shocked, Ki-jun and Hee-yul demand to know where he met her, but Jae-ho smugly refuses to share, leaving them frustrated. The two best friends decide they'll need to interrogate him later. During the martial arts class, Ki-jun is paired with Jae-ho for sparring. Taking the opportunity, Ki-jun grabs Jae-ho's arm, throws him to the ground, and puts him in a headlock. As he applies pressure, Ki-jun presses Jae-ho to reveal where he met his girlfriend. Reluctant at first, Jae-ho finally caves under Ki-jun's persistence and reveals that he met her at a place called Octagon. After class, Ki-jun triumphantly reports the information to Hee-yul, setting the stage for their next adventure. Back in their room, the excitement builds as they prepare for their night out. Hee-yul debates which pair of glasses to wear, while Ki-jun agonizes over which jacket looks best. Thinking quickly, Ki-jun suggests they borrow clothes and leads Hee-yul to Jae-ho's room. Upon entering, Hee-yul immediately grabs a jacket without inspecting it and leaves. Ki-jun takes a moment to carefully pick one, then asks Jae-ho if he can borrow it. Jae-ho skeptically asks why, and Ki-jun responds by claiming it's because they're friends. Jae-ho, unconvinced, retorts that they aren't close enough for such favors. When Ki-jun asks what he wants in return, Jae-ho bargains for a win in their next judo class. Reluctantly, Ki-jun agrees. At the club, Hee-yul starts to enjoy the party, attempting to mingle with girls, but they ignore him. Ki-jun also struggles to find anyone who will take him seriously. As Hee-yul moves through the crowd, he accidentally bumps into a girl who seems attracted to him. They begin dancing, but their fun is interrupted when her boyfriend shows up, warning Hee-yul to stay away from her. Meanwhile, Ki-jun tries his luck with another girl. She smiles and asks about his profession. Ki-jun explains that he's a student. The girl then asks if he's studying abroad, and he replies that he's studying locally to become a policeman. Her response catches him off guard. She leans in and whispers, questioning why he'd pursue something that would only leave him poor for life. Her words hit Ki-jun hard, forcing him to confront the realities of his choices. He glances around the club, noticing the carefree lives of young men his age, enjoying themselves without the weight of responsibility. Feeling deflated, the pair leave the club and head to a small restaurant for drinks. As they sit, Ki-jun voices his doubts about his future, wondering if he should continue on the path to becoming a cop. Eventually, Ki-jun lightens up, laughing a little, and asks Hee-yul to step outside the restaurant. He also asks him what he wants to do. Hee-yul suggests going to an internet cafe to play games. As they step outside, they notice a girl walking while talking on her phone. Both of them are captivated by her smile. Ki-jun jokes that they've been given one last chance to meet a girl. To decide who should approach her, they play rock, paper, scissors. However, as they watch, a group of men suddenly forces the girl into a van. They try to chase after the van but fail to catch up as it drives away. Afterward, both of them are winded and start feeling nauseous. Ki-jun calls the police to report the incident. The officer on the other end asks for more details, and Hee-yul takes over, giving the license plate number. However, no information is found after checking. They spot the plastic bag the girl in pink was carrying earlier. When they open it, they first think it's blood, which shocks them, but then they realize it's tteokbokki. Meanwhile, inside the van, the girl wakes up. Seeing the unknown men around her, she pretends to remain unconscious and listens as one of the men speaks on the phone, seemingly discussing a transaction to sell her phone. Hee-yul and Ki-jun decide to question several tteokbokki vendors, hoping to find information about the girl. They ask around at different stands, but none of them recognize her, and some vendors refuse to help. Eventually, they enter a store and immediately notice the same slices of scallions that are used for tteokbokki. The lady vendor asks what they need, and they begin to ask about the girl. She confirms that the girl in pink is a regular customer but doesn't know her personally. However, She remembers seeing her once at her workplace, so she gives them the location. They thank the vendor and head there right away. When they arrive, they discover it's an ear cleaning service shop. Inside the shop, Hyul tells the girl that someone they might know, or possibly a worker at the shop, has been abducted. The girl confirms her identity and reveals that her name is Yoon-young. She is only 17 and working illegally, just like herself. She also mentions that Yoon-young ran away from home. Hyul successfully gathers the information, including Yoon-young's home address. But Ki-jun arrives just in time. At Yoon-young's home, they knock on the door, and a man named Gun-young opens it slightly. But the door is chained, preventing it from opening fully. Gun-young asks who they are, and Ki-jun answers that they are from the police university, adding that they saw Yoon-young being kidnapped, while also trying to sneak a glance inside the house. Gun-young inside says he'll open the door but instead locks it and breaks a window to escape. A girl inside opens the door for Ki-jun and Hyul to enter, but by then, the man has already fled. They go their separate ways, continuing their pursuit of the Gun-young. In the parking lot, Hyul is attacked by Gun-young with a knife. However, he manages to protect himself and subdue the attacker using the skills he learned at university. At first, he can't believe he actually did it. Ki-jun arrives and asks if Hyul was the one who took the man down. Hyul proudly confirms it, telling Ki-jun that they should apply what they've been taught, now truly believing it works. Ki-jun restrains the man by pinning his hands behind his back, while Hyul takes Gun-young's phone and demands the passcode. Reluctantly, Gun-young gives it to them, and upon unlocking the phone, they discover that he sold Yoon-young to someone named Gun-ho, who pays for runaway kids. With no other choice, Gun-young reveals Gun-ho's location at a lamb kebab shop in Daramdong and hands them Gun-ho's business card. They take a taxi to Daramdong. Meanwhile, in the dark room where Yoon-young is locked up, she notices men approaching. She tries to hide, but she can't escape. The men inject her with a drug and falsify her profile. Ki-jun and Hyul arrive at a small restaurant and enter. The server hands them the menu and informs them that the restaurant closes at 4 a.m. before walking away. At another table, a group of men is playing cards. Ki-jun asks Hyul for Gun-young's phone. After receiving it, Ki-jun begins dialing the number from their earlier conversation. However, a phone starts ringing at the men's table. Ki-jun quickly cancels the call, but the man holding the phone, Gun-ho, calls back. Ki-jun, forgetting to mute his phone, lets it ring loudly, alerting the men. They notice the sound and begin approaching Ki-jun and Hyul. The men demand to know about Gun-young and why they have his phone. The situation escalates quickly, forcing Ki-jun and Hyul to defend themselves. After a struggle, they manage to knock the men down. They start interrogating Gun-ho, but he refuses to speak. Frustrated, Ki-jun grabs a stick from the table and prods him. They drag Gun-ho to the room where the girls are being held. Inside the building, Hyul begins searching. He checks a room and tries to illuminate it by shining light through a gap under the door. Suddenly, a girl's voice calls out for help, followed by voices from other rooms pleading as well. Ki-jun hears the commotion from downstairs and asks Gun-ho what kind of place this is and what they do to the girls. Gun-ho reveals that the girls are injected with drugs and their eggs are harvested. Hyul goes downstairs and calls for Ki-jun. Ki-jun breaks a doorknob to open one of the rooms, revealing a girl who is bleeding and burning up. They decide to take her to the hospital. As they leave the building, they encounter a large group of men backing up Gun-ho. While Ki-jun carries the injured girl, Hyul tries to fend them off with a long piece of wood. He hits one of the men in the head and tells Ki-jun to hurry. Ki-jun promises to return shortly, but before he can, the leader of the group named Yang-chun steps forward. Hyul tries to fight back, but Yang-chun kicks him in the leg, causing him to fall. The man repeats the attack, weakening Hyul. Yang-chun then throws Hyul to his men, who begin to beat him mercilessly. Ki-jun returns, attempting to help Hyul, but Yang-chun intercepts him. The leader demands to know where Ki-jun is going and who they are. Ki-jun claims they are cops pretending to be undercover. When Yang-chun asks to see his badge, it becomes obvious that Ki-jun is lying, as he cannot provide proof. The leader begins to attack Ki-jun, who surprisingly withstands the punches at first. However, as the assault continues, Ki-jun weakens. Eventually, a final kick to his face knocks him unconscious. When Hyul regains consciousness, he realizes the situation has